Okay, good morning. So we are up to today. We're going to be doing Samach Beis on the base, or at least part of Samach Beis on the base. We have to finish up Samach Beis on the Aleph. We're about halfway down. So yesterday, the last lines we did about halfway down was Rava Mekami de Haberesha. Before Rava became the Rosh Shiva, so Meghar Kesha Le Bas Rav Chizda, his wife was the daughter of Rav Chizda. There's a lot more to say on the daughters of Rav Chizda. When we get to Shabbos, look on Shabbos Kuf Mem about the daughters of Rav Chizda. So Rav was married to the daughter of Rav Chizda, and before he became a Shiva, so then when he would go to the bathroom in order to ward off any mazdikim and the like, she would she would take a nut, put it in like a jar, and shake it. Right, Mekarkashale Bas Rav Chizda Amagozda Belakna, and she would shake it, and I guess that noise would sort of scare away the mazikim, and no one would bother him. Basa the Malach, after he became a Shiva, the Avdalai Kabaseh, Avdallah Kabasah, she made some sort of a window, Manchala Yoda Resha, and then she put her hand on his head, which I guess again helped ward off the shade. And Rashi explains that when she became the Rashiva, so Mishkanim Hashedim Tamid Chacham Yosem Mishav Neodim, then the Shadim really want to get you more than other people. And Rashi is referring back to, if you remember the more in the beginning of the parak, back on Dalan Beis. So if you remember at the bottom of the page, the Gemara told us that about people who need shimur, shleisha tzrichin shimur, ve'elohein chayla, chasan, v'kala, and then we added on an additional. V'yeshayim af avel, and avel also needs shmira. V'yeshayim af taminei chachamim balayla. Even taminei chacham at night needs shmira from the mazikin. So this is the idea. Rashi is explaining. This is the idea why Rava, before he becomes a Shiva, needs a certain level of shmira. You shake a little graga around a little bit, that's fine. When he becomes a Shiva, you need more shmira from the mazikim. That's why she literally, kept her hand on his head, that somehow, warded them off. Maybe made it like two people in the basic Isa, which we say has impact on the mazikim. Not sure. Okay. And we also quickly yesterday discussed Taisvis, how this worked if the Barhedjid, interpretation meant that the wife would die, it meant Abaye would die, and then he became Rosh Hashiva. Sounds like over here that he was married to her both after he became Rosh Hashiva as well as before, which includes obviously the period that Abaye died, because then Rava gets the job. So Taisvis explains you must say that yes, Abaya's death and his wife's death they didn't have to happen in a linear order. They happen whenever they happen. But Abaya died before his wife died, even though they both ended up dying. And as I said yesterday, this has no impact because of the fact that we know Abaya lived 60 years and Rava lived 40 years. Although, as I said, that Gemara that says that really should probably be Rabbah rather than Rava, because that Gemara is talking about Bnei Eli and Rava is for sure not a Kain, whereas the Gemara in Chulin Kuflan Zayin. So that you can't ask any questions from that Gemara. And regardless, like Rabbi and Rava, whenever they lived, they didn't necessarily have to be born the same day. You don't have to think about it in that way. So therefore, of course, not a question about when Abai died versus his wife. Okay. Now we are to new Gemara today. So where are we up to is the next line. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amar Ula, Achere Hageder Nifna Miyad. When you go right past a wall, then you can go to the bathroom right away. We don't ask about the soundproofing of a wall, right? Certain homes, the walls are very thin. You hear everything that's going on. Today, they don't build with plaster. Like you go to, palaces in Europe, you touch a castle, you touch a wall, it's like 100 feet thick. Go to Akko, right? You touch these walls in the old city of Yerushalayim, the house that built 1,000 years ago, touch those walls. No one's hearing anything. They're built the way walls were once built, not like today, where everything is sheetrock. So Ula is saying, if you go beyond the wall, then it's namiyad. Then you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to worry about who can hear, what will be heard. You can go to the bathroom right away. Again, just to be clear, we're talking here about situations of people going to the bathroom and defecating, not simply urinating. Urinating obviously is not going to be this issue. Then Uba continues and it says Uba Bika, when you go down to like a valley, so there's no separation, there's no gather, there's no blockage. Then calls man shemisatesh ve'en chaver sheman. Then you have to go a distance where whenever a person's going to be passing any wind, that no one's going to hear. So that is to say, you have to go much farther by a bika, by some open area, people who can see you, than you would if you're in a closed, sort of closed off or enclosed space because of the fact that it's some sort of a wall. Yeah. Continues the Gemara. Easy by Nas and Masniach. Easy by Nas had a different opinion on the matter. He has a different version of when is permitted. He says like this: Achari I get there when you're behind the wall. You're able to defecate behind the wall so long as if you pass wind, no one's going to hear. That is to say, you have to check the soundproofing of the wall. If it's a sheetrock roll of 2026, then that is not going to work. You're going to have to go more of a distance. But if you got some sort of plaster wall from 1,000 years ago, and since that sound won't penetrate that, so then obviously you don't have to go any distance. So it's a more machmedic Geshita from Isi Barnasan than it was from Ula. Continues the Gemara. Uva Bika, what does Isi Barnasan hold when you're in an open area? So then Kozman She'en Chaver Re'ehu. Again, a further distance, because according to the Ula, you have to go the distance where no one's going to hear any noises. But according to Ula, but according to Isi Barnasan, you have to go the distance where someone's not going to even see you. Obviously, it's a much greater distance than hearing. Okay? Says the Gemara Meisva, is this in fact the case? We ask a question on this. Yotzim, we have a mission that tells us in Tyrus. Yotzim in Pesach Beis Habad. You have Shemrim, right, guards by the olive press. So they're watching and they have to go to the bathroom. So they're able to get up and leave the olive press and go to the bathroom. Yotzim in Pesach Beis Habad. They're able to get up and leave the olive press. And they're able to go to the bathroom behind the wall, vein tyrant, and everything that they were watching will still be considered tar. Why would it still be considered tar? Now they're not there; they're not watching anymore. Maybe they went some sort of a distance away, behind the thing. We say, no, behind the wall is not such a major distance. They'll be done relatively quickly. It's fine. So the Gemara is asking a question on Nisi Barnas. Nisi Barnas, and he said that going behind the wall is not enough. Ula said going behind the wall is fine, but according to Nisi Barnas, you have to do a soundproofing check. And it's simply not enough just to go behind the wall. According to Isi Bar Nasan, you have to go behind the wall and make sure that nobody hears you. From this mission in Tyrus, it's clear you don't have to make any soundproofing check. You just go behind the wall and that's enough. So the question then on Isi Bar Nasan, when we're dealing with trying to keep the food tar, so we're going to be more makel. We're going to be more makel in such a situation. So fundamentally, what Isi Bar Nasan said is correct. When you defecate, you go behind the wall, you have to make sure that the soundproofing is good. But if it's a situation where you have a job of guarding food that it shouldn't become tameh, so we're being makel on that. So therefore, when you go behind the wall, that's sufficient. But not if it'll be a regular case where you have no impinging circumstance. You're just going behind the wall to go to the bathroom. That's not enough. Then you have to, my husband says, you have to do a soundproofing check and make sure the wall is really soundproof. Otherwise, you still have to distance yourself. Here's the Gemara. Another question on Isi Bar Nasan. Tashma have a Bryce that tells you like this. I'm sorry, another mission that tells you like this. Tashma, how much does the person have to distance himself and still the food that they're watching will be considered tar? So long as they see you, it's fine. In other words, if you get to a distance where no one's going to be able to see you anymore, so at that stage, that maybe we wouldn't consider the food that you were watching to be tar. Do you see what? You see when you go to the bathroom, you can go and defecate and be seen. What did Isi Bar Nasan said about Beka? He said you have to go to a place where you're going to go so far called Mancha in Chaver Re'ehu. And here you see exactly the opposite. You go to a place, you should go to a place where they can still remain see you. If they can still see you, then the food will remain tar. So you see, again, not like Isi Bar Nasan. Again, the Gemara answers the same thing. Shani Oichetaris, they kill Baraban. Again, the same reason that we said before. These are not questions on Isi Bar Nasan, because this is coming up from Tyrus, and for Tyrus we have a special heter. We want things to remain tar, so therefore we'll make go. in terms of the distance that a person has to defecate, has to go to the bathroom. But in a normative case, without worrying about tyrus, so then we would do isi by nas and say you have to go far distance. Now Rav Ashi comes along. Rav Ashi Amar, and Rav Ashi says that we can reread Isi Bar Nasan. We read Isi Bar Nasan as saying, what does it mean by a bigger Kol Zman Shein Chaver Re'eu? That meant they have to go so far that no one can see you, right? Imagine it's a clear day. Sometimes you can see a big distance, you can see miles. I mean, that's what he's saying. You have mamish, such a distance. So the Gemara says no. Rav Ashi Amar, what Isi Bar Nasan said doesn't mean literally have to go, travel a mile to go to the bathroom. No, no. My close mancha in chaver. What does it mean that so long as your friend can't see you? The Amr Isi Manasan. And Isi Manasan was explaining that you have to go such a distance that your friend doesn't see you. What did he mean? Close mancha in chaver roya as peruai. It meant a distance that your friend can't see your private areas. That's what it meant, right? But the actual body of the person, now you can still see. So obviously, it's a much shorter distance. So Rashi is coming along and reinterpreting, right, what Isi Ben Austin said. You don't have to go such a crazy distance. You can go, you have to go a distance, so they shouldn't be able to see private areas. And we're not talking about a situation where you have to go a certain distance where they can't see you through spyglass, right, through glasses. No, a normal person, how much of a distance you have to go? The person should be able to see that closely. But can they still see you? Yes. Right. That's a situation where there's no gather, where there's no wall or other blockage that's preventing you from being seen. Okay. Obviously, all of these issues all have gone away with the kinds of bathrooms that we have today. All right. Now, Zarta Gemara. Yeah, so Zarta Gemara, who sapanda, right? This is like in those days, the what talks about the Navi, Mekayim, right? They had people who were professional criers, they had people who were professional Haspedim givers, and they would try to arouse the crowd, when somebody passed away. So Usapana, the next commentary of Nachman, was somebody who was a professional Hasped giver, and he was giving a Hasped, and Nachman was there. And he said, Omar Hayt Sanua Baruchaisav Hava. This person was Mamash Sanua in the way he led his life. So Amalei Rav Nachman, said to him, At Ayalas Mahadid Lebeis Akise. Rav Nachman asked him, did you go with him to the Beis Akise? And you know that he was a Tzanu in the Beis Akise or not? All right, what are we talking about here in terms of the Tzanu in the Beis Akise? Presumably what we're talking here is about the kinds of ways the person acts in terms of, we had before the Gemara Chav Gimel, remember? About Megal Tefach, Chassid V'chaim. The Gemara uses it in a different way in the Gemara in the Dar Chaf, a different style there. Rosman Horkin is an Ima Shalom, the whole thing over there. But for our purposes now, it means essentially that a person goes to the bathroom. There's tznius aspects of being in the bathroom, even if you're alone, nobody's there. It still waits, and that only does apply even nowadays, right? In terms of how a person should act within his dalanams that no one else sees him. So if Nachman saying that to the professional husband giver, you have no right to say that he was a tsanua when you don't know. You didn't go with him to the bathroom. You don't know how he acted in private, so you can't say about him this kind of a thing. The Tanya, in current tsanua, mishat tsanua basic kisa. You don't call somebody tsanua unless he's really tsanua in his private areas and when he's going to the bathroom. The Moshe says, Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman, why do you care so much about this? You're giving Musa to the Sapadna, telling him that he's giving too nice of a husband. Right, so the reason is as follows. Mishum the Tanya, because you have a bride that says, Geshem Shin from an Abesim Kachtan from an Asapdanin. The same way that you're going to get payback if you're a mace, they're going to take payback from you. Presumably, if things happen even at your funeral that that were not appropriate, from an asabdan, so they're going to take a payback from the person who gave the husband, and from those who were answering afterwards and groaning and saying, "Oh yeah, everybody's going to have to pay for inappropriate things that were said." Inappropriate here means untrue. I should just mention that I wonder if this is part of the connection to the Gemara we had before in Ches. Right? Remember the Gemara in Ches told us Leis Mitzoi. Right? The Gemara had very, very different drushes about it. Right? Leis Mitzoi could be an Isha, could be, and remember Nuna said Leis Akise. Marava said the basic Akise, that's the best. Right? You daven for a good bathroom. Very important, right? That also applies nowadays too. But there, Gemara, one of the opinions was that a person should daven racham ad afil zibula achraita, right? Even after till the last shovel of dirt is put on you, a person should be davening for racham from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Why till the last bit of dirt is put onto your body? You're already dead. Why are you davening for racham even after you're dead? I wonder if this is part of the Gemara. If that's the thinking. Because if somebody's going to be maspid you inappropriately, right, there are some people in certain Hasidim where they don't allow hispedim. It's perhaps because of this. Because if you're going to get an inappropriate hesped, you're going to have to pay. The person who gave the hesped is going to have to pay. The people who are there are going to have to pay, and the dead guy's going to have, everyone has to pay. So I wonder if that's what the Gemara is thinking about on the Gemara in Ches. Why doesn't it explain? When the Gemara says you have to daven even till the last bit of earth, the last clod is thrown on you, you still got to daven for rachamim. I wonder if it's because of the fear people are going to be master you shaloi karoi. They're going to give too much covet, inappropriate type of honors. In which case, you're going to have to pay. I should also mention the Gemara told us before we had on Tezayin. The Gemara told us there about it was a very not wouldn't fit with the zeitgeist today about if somebody's eved passed away. So what should you say about the eved? Right? Somebody didn't want to take tanchumen for his eved, but the Rabbi Gamliel, a special eved, he took tanchumen. Right? So what should you say? You should say for when a person's eved dies, the same thing you would say when the person's animal dies. You know, Hashem should repay back what you just lost. But there was an eved who passed away. And Rabbi Yossi said that an Eved Kosher, you're allowed to say, Have Ish Toiv. He was a good man. V'neman, he was a faithful man. And he enjoyed the fruits of his own labors. So they said to him, Im Kain, if this is what you're going to say on your Eved, was a good guy, Ma hinachta l'ksher. What did you leave over for a regular person? Just simply saying he was the Ish Toiv, Nema, V'nenem Yigiyah, it's done. Done. So I imagine this haspedim were very short. What else can you say? If you say those three things, that's already taking it all. What are you leaving for the ksherim? So you can understand why Rav Nachman is very concerned about going overboard on the haspedim. I should mention that someone told me he was in Morocco that on a lot of the tombstones there by the rabbis, I don't know about the regular people, but by the rabbis specifically, it says "V'nenem yigiyah," like unbelievable. By the rabbis, it says by each one of them that they worked. They didn't take the money. They didn't take the money they got from. They didn't take the rabbinate. They didn't pay them. Right. The Mishnah we're going to have in Yuma, fourth parak, right? That the Torah shouldn't be a kardam lachbar. Look at the Parish of the Rambam over there. Look at the Rambam Hilchos Talmud Torah. You'll see what I mean. Whether or not this Rambam is accepted, you have to come to the Koil classes that we did 5 years ago. Okay, continue the Gemara. All right, where are we up to? So the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan. We're going back to the bathroom. Yeah. Tana Rabbanan. Ezeu tzanua. What is somebody who's a tzanua? Well, we just said somebody who's a tzanua in the basic kisei. Now we're giving more detail. That it's not just simply how you act when you're in the bathroom, but when you go to the bathroom. Ezeu tzanua is that nifna malayla. B'makim shenifna mayayim. When a person goes to the bathroom, bin makayim, in the same place that they go by day. In other words, you understand by day when a person has to go a certain distance, you might see him. What about at night? At night, if you have to go to the bathroom, you shouldn't have to go such a distance because no one's going to see you. So the more saying a tzanua is somebody who even at night goes to the same distance to the bathroom the way he does by day. So the Gemara, is this true? But we have a member from Rav who says that the way a person should act when he goes to the bathroom is you go to the bathroom in the morning and the evening in order not to have to go such a major distance. In other words, what you see from here is that you don't have to go a major distance when you're going to the bathroom at night. And you just said that Tanua, somebody goes the same amount of distance at night as he does by day. Visu, and I bring you another raya against what you just told me. Rava be a mama have a uzal admil. Rava, when he had to go to the bathroom, right? We have to defecate by day. You would go mamash a mile. U'belayla, and at night, Amalei Shame Panuli Dukta B'Rechev the Masa. You say to his shamish, prepare me a place right here on the road, right? So I don't have to go too far. So you see, you don't have to go far at night. And you still, obviously, you're not saying that Rabbi's not a Tanua. He obviously was. You see, you're not correct. V'chen Amalei Rabbi Zera, L'Shame. So Rabbi Zera said to his shamish, Chazim man de'ika acher beis chavraya, debinul mifni. He would say, go check who's behind the base medrash, because I have to go to the bathroom. In other words, they didn't go such a major distance at night. So your whole price that says who's a tsanua is only somebody who goes and travels far at night. You see, that's not the case. You see here examples from Rabbi Zera, from Rava, and we have what do you call the statement of Rav that you do not have to go big distance at night. So the Gemara has to read, has to find for. So the Gemara rereads what we said in that brisa. We don't mean b'makayim. So that's the Gemara loy tema b'makayim. Don't say what it meant. B'makayim means literally the place. That's not what he meant. Ela'ema kiderech shenifna b'yim. But rather in the manner that he goes to the bathroom by day. In other words, let's reread it. So Tanarab, Ezo Tzanua, who is a Tzanua? Zeh nifna balayla kiderech shenifna b'yim. So somebody going to the bathroom by night, kiderech, then he goes by day. What does it mean, kiderech shenifna b'yim? So Rashi explains. We're talking here, like we said before, in the Gemara Chav Gimel, in the Indian Tefachayim, meaning what I said still applies nowadays in terms of how Tzanua a person is alone. Nobody's there, no one's coming by, but how a person acts in his Chadrei Chadarim, that's still an element of tznius. Yeah. The more Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches, how you get to become Rabbeinu HaKadosh is obviously not incumbent on anybody, but it's fundamentally things that that we are aware of, people that strove, for something like that. Okay. So that's what we're saying. And Rashi points out that what we mean here is, again, in Megal Tefach Tzvakayim and also Miyushav, right, in terms of sitting in an appropriate fashion when one's going to the bathroom. Okay. Good. Zad the Gemara. Rav Ashi now wants to try to explain without giving up the b'makim. Rashi explains, Rashi, I feel b'makim. You don't have to get rid of the word b'makim. You could still say that brisa and say, what's a tzanua? Somebody who's nifna b'layla b'makim shenifna b'yem. And you don't have the kasha from Rav and Rabbi Zera and from Rav. You don't have the kasha. Why? How does it work? B'makim? Right. This is the second time the Rav Ashi is being used to retranslate something on this page, right? The last time was Rav Ashi said, what do we mean of Isi by Nasan? And he reread what Isi by Nasan meant. What did it mean? Kozman she'en chaver raya. It meant that Kozman she'en chaver raya as puroi, right? So here, Rashi again is coming along. But Makim could still work. Rashi, I feel time on Makim. You can still say Makim. It's not a problem. Like it's okay. Elo a Karen Zavis. We're talking about a situation of a Karen Zavis. In other words, we're a situation where you have a right angle, meaning you're basically covered in all directions from right by a wall, by enclosure, except for the doorway to the bathroom. And so therefore, since you're in a Kevin Zavis, if you go there at night, then that's not going to be a problem. You can go there the same way you would go. You can go there by night and by day, it will be no problem. So again, you have to reread it as saying, we're talking about here about a Karen Zavis, no matter situation where yeah, as Rashi says, if you have a close by Karen Zavas, so then Sarchlis, Stalik, Sham Balala Kibiyah, you can go there at night. The same we go by day. If you don't go in an open area, but you can use the same Karen Zavas by night and by day. It doesn't make a difference. Okay. So now we wants to go and revisit one point that we just mentioned, which is this line from Yehuda Marav. So the Margufam Yehuda Marav. What did he say? He said, a person should go to the bathroom in the morning and the night in order so he shouldn't have to go and make himself distant, go in a far area. What we mean when we say here shachris v'arvus, morning and night, we don't mean morning that it's daytime. We mean that it's still evening, right? It's still dark. As Rashi says, shachris is kaidem hayoyim. Right, V'arvus is Mishach HaShecha. We're talking about very early, right? Very early and very late. So it's already dark. So Rav Yehuda Marav is saying, a person should be accustoming himself to train himself to go to the bathroom when it's very early at night. Again, obviously this doesn't apply nowadays at all. but a person should accustom himself to go to the bathroom when it's still dark, whether in the morning or in the evening. So a person shouldn't have to go any distance, right? Because as we just said, it could be much closer by at night. We don't mean literally at night, even by day. So long as it's dark, you don't have to go a major distance, as we have said. You still have to act sanua, as we already said in the other answer. It's kederech, but not b'makom. You don't have to go a far distance when it's dark. So therefore, accustom yourself to go to the bathroom when it's dark, so you don't have to go a major distance. Tanya Rabbi Yochanan brings a ride to this. What's the ride? Benazi Omer Hashkim V'tzei Harav V'tzei. Person should accustom himself to go to the bathroom in the morning and in the evening. Kadesh Lo Tisrachek. So you shouldn't have to go a distance. The next words here, I'm not really sure if sort of the science agrees with this, or if anyone does. Sometimes I have no idea. But what it means is essentially a person before he goes to the bathroom should be getting himself ready to go to the bathroom. So how do you do that? Mishamish v'shev. What is mishamish v'shev? You take some sort of a rock, l'steach and kavim. The Armina Masech Shabbos. Lashon Acher Mishamish HaMoshev Shalei Yehem Meluchlach. There's a Lashon Acher which is more easy for us to understand, which is you check out the seat, make sure that it was put down, make sure it was clean. That's the easy one to relate to. But the first one about getting oneself ready, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's medical advice for people or not. Yeah, Zadi Gemar. And especially I say this because look at Rashi. He continues Rashi. Veloshin Rishon Hagun. Right. The better language, the better approach to this Gemara is the first lashon. In other words, use some sort of a rock to open up the nekavim to be able to go to the bathroom. All right. Yeah. And the reason Rashi proves it is, as we'll see in a second. So again, this is part of Ben Azai's advice. Ben Azai said a person should go to the bathroom in the morning and the evening, meaning while it's still dark. In each case, in order so you shouldn't have to go any distance. That's clearly right to Rav. Then he says other helpful advice, which is mishamish v'shev. A person should either check out the seat or use some sort of rock to open the nekav. The al teshev the shamish, and a person shouldn't first sit and then use the rocks. That anybody who's going to be doing that while he's already sitting, I feel that even if they're using some sort of kishuf and aspamio far away, that kishuf is going to come on you. Again, I'm not really sure what any of this means. But that's how Ben Azai explained. In Shiviyas, what if the person forgot and he sat down on the toilet and then he's using the rocks to check it out? So then and then afterwards he used the rocks to check himself out. But what's he going to do? What about all the kishuf and aspami that's going to come on him? What should he do? So kikoi, when he finishes in the bathroom, he should say the following. Right? If you remember, we just had literally the Gemara, right? We had the Gemara on Samach Lamed Beis. Right at the top of the page, the Gemara told us the key when you come to the bathroom, to cover the Israel and Harpu Mimeno Ache Konetz V'Etzer Ritzoni, right? And I then told you what about the sheet of the Rambam. The Rambam brings us down the halacha. He doesn't care about shadim. Okay, so here we have another sort of a fear of the kishuf, and that it can harm you if you were using these rocks to open the nekavim when you're sitting rather than you were standing. What the difference would be, I don't know. But nevertheless, when you get up, we have a lachash. We have some sort of incantation that's going to help you. What's the lachash? Loi li, right? Not to me, not to me. You're not going to be able to beat me. Loi tachem, loi tachtem. These are names of kshafim. Rashi says, somehow they have to do with going to the bathroom. Yeah. Loi hani, loi mahani. It's not going to work. Loi chershi, the chershiv, loi chershi, the chershasa. And this is Rashi says the names of mechashev is male and mechashev is female. So somehow this incantation is going to prevent the kshafim from doing their number on you. As we turn the page now, there's Samach Beis, Amud Beis. We have some more health related things, but no more incantations. So Tanya, Zod de Brisa, we have another line from Ben Azai. Tanya Ben Azai Emer. So Ben Azai said as follows: I'll call mishkav shachav. All right, whenever you have a bed, you can lie on the bed. But you shouldn't lie on the floor. Why? If you look on lying on the floor, maybe that's dangerous. Again, we had a Gemara, right? What would the Gemara told us in terms of our Going back to the beginning of Brachos, we had a Gemara that told us, what was it, Yudalad? The Gemara told us where? The Gemara told us that you can't just go lying on a bed. Um, right, you have to be careful because of the fact that we were afraid by the bed of a guy that maybe they would be tricking you. Right, you're not allowed to lie. I'll meet the Aramis, and we said, what is the mita of Aramis that you're not allowed to lie on? So we said that that referred to um, Amita Shalaram, like I'm not finding it right now, was potentially a few things. One was that you're not able to go to sleep without saying Shema. That was one possibility. One option of the Gemara was that if a person not supposed to be Yashal, Amita Shalaramas, that was Bedafka. Why not? Because of Ma'aseh Shahaya, where somebody came to a woman, a Gersh woman's house, and she had put a dead body underneath the bed. And so as a result of that, that's what we said, Loy Togan Almita Shalaramas, that was to be understood in a literal sense. And I got the Gemara was on Chetzim base. The Gemara said, Valtesh Mitas Aramis, Ikadam relate to Gunabla Kriyashma, you can't go to sleep without Kriyashma. Ikadam relate to Natsal Yurta. What does it mean? Valtesh Mitas Aramis, you can't marry a Gyaris. Ikadam Aramis Mamash Mishum Ma'aseh Rav Papa. The actual Ma'aseh happened with Rav Papa that when he went to the Aramis house, she put she put a dead body there when he was trying to collect the debt. So how does this Benazir work with that? I'll call Mishkaf Shaka, be able to go to sleep on any bed. Obviously, we don't mean Amita Shalaramas. I mean, that's clear. Okay. Continues the Gemara. I'll call Moshe Shave. Benazir says you can sit on any chair. Chutz min but you can't sit on a beam, right? Obviously, a beam, if you sit on it and it falls, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, I assume. Maybe you haven't seen, but one of my favorite pictures of sitting on a beam is these. I think is they're Mohawk Indians. I'm not sure. There are some sort of Indians. Science seems to have suggested that they don't have the same fear of heights. Or at least these Indians and they helped build the Empire State Building. You can actually, if you Google it, you'll see a picture of these Indians sitting on the beams of the Empire State Building, like 100 stories up, and they're just like having lunch and totally normal. There's no fear of heights. I don't really understand, but maybe for everyone else, Benazir's dictum applies. Different generation, yeah. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Shina ba'amur hashachar ki istamal parzula. Shmuel says that somebody who's sleeping, amur hashachar, right? That's the earliest time in the morning. That's like when you're going and putting iron by the fire, by the smelter. Rashi explains, Shemayel barzal, it helps to make the iron steel strong. Kachmayel guf, right? So it helps the body. So sleeping at that moment is great. I think of this Gemara. I think of the Gemara back. Don't tell me it's also on Ches. It's also on Ches, right? I think it's also on Ches. The Gemara tells us there. Yeah, it's also on Ches. The bottom of the page, the Gemara says that Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Gamliel. Remember the Mishnah on Beis? We had the Machlekes. When are you allowed to say Kriya Shema of Arvis until? Right. So we had three opinions. We have until the Mishash Kainim. Right. We have the opinion of the Chacham said Achatzais. Right. That's Sefer Shmuel Rishona Achatzais. And what was the third opinion? Rabbi Gamliel on Amud Shachar. So Shmuel says that halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. You're able to say Shema of Arvis until Amud Shachar. So according to Shmuel, that says that when you're getting in some nice sleep at that moment, it makes sense, right? Because people had a question: can you say Kriyash Mashal Arvis so late? It's Amud Shachar already. Well, Shmuel is saying that that's the time when people are having a good sleep. It makes sense why you would say why you could still say Shema until that time. As we said, and then the Gemara continue, you could say even sometimes later than that. That's the Gemara there. Two versions. That's even after Amud Shachar. You can still say Kriyat Shema Shal Arvis. Yeah, sometimes you can say Kriyat Shema Shachar so early. This is not on topic for the moment. Okay, continues the Gemara. So you'd see about Amud Shachar Ki'istam L'Parza. Another line from Shmuel is that if a person has to go to the bathroom, at that moment, when a person goes to the bathroom, Amud Shachar is also very good for the body And maybe this fits with what we were just saying before, that but as I said, hashkim v'tzei, the higher v'tzei, right? That person should train themselves to go to the bathroom early. So Shmuel is saying that if a person going to the bathroom early, it's like the smelting the iron. It's like very, very good for the body. Okay. So the Gemara, Bar Kapara having mizavan mili bedinri. Bar Kapara used to sell his adages for money. In other words, people would pay Bar Kapara because he's such a sharp guy. People would pay. People would pay for his sharp line. Now we know there's a Gemara Nun in the Dharm, but the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi didn't want Bar Kapar to come to his kid's wedding because he says you're going to make me laugh too much. You're going to disrupt. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the world, existed because of his style in Bava Metzia, hey. But Bar Kapar could make Rabbi laugh. There are other Gemaras that say that Bar Kapar was a wealthy person. He once saved the governor after a shipwreck. He became wealthy from that. Nevertheless, and we had also Gemara, right? Remember, we had the Gemara before. We had the Gemara on Lamatet. Right? We had the Gemara on Lamatet where Bar Kapara got upset that people came to him to eat. He was one of the people, I guess, who gave some meals. He got upset. He said, Chachmein kan, Ziknein kan, right? Because a question about the brachas, the order of the brachas, what you should make a bracha on first, the pargiot or whatever. So they didn't ask me. You're at my table. You should ask me first. Anyhow, Bar Kapar was such a sharp person, the people used to pay him for his sharp lines. So this was one of his lines. At the kanaf tachal, right? When you're hungry, eat. At the tzachas should say, right? When you're thirsty, drink. Maybe this is referring to, I'm not sure. The Rambam tells us that a person in Hilchos Deis, the Rambam says in the fourth parak, a person is not supposed to eat unless they're hungry, right? When you're hungry, you should eat, and the reason is because if you don't eat when you're hungry, and you eat when you're not hungry, you don't have the same joy of the food. It doesn't help you as much. Again, when drinking, you're not supposed to drink during the meal. According to the Rambam, you're supposed to drink after the meal, minimum during the meal. You'd be thirsty after you ate, then presumably you're supposed to drink. Add the rizcha kaderech shafuch, right? When you have a boiling pot, you should pour it out when it's boiling. In other words, as Rashi explains, it's a reference to the bathroom. That's how it connects. That you should go to the bathroom when you have to go. We know already about shaktu, it's allowed. You have to go to the bathroom. You have to go to the bathroom. You go. Continues Bar Kapar's sharp lines. Karna karya beraimi bar. When you hear the horn calling out in Rome, meaning in the marketplace, bar mizavin ta'eni davav zavin. Right, the son of a fig seller, you should sell their father's figs, even if your father's not home. When they're making a market for figs, sell them because obviously the price is going to be good. If you're going to try to sell your figs when no one's looking for figs, then you're not going to get a good price. Yeah. So these were some of the sharp lines. Abai says when you go on the roads of Mechayza to the bathroom, in order to be able to go to the bathroom when the field like don't look this way and that. Maybe they're a woman, it's not appropriate to be looking at them. In other words, look at the Gemara about Abai and Sukkah and Beis on the bottom, about Abai concerned about working on the fields. Woman, not getting into more than that now. We already talked about the woman of Mechayza before. Remember the Gemara we had before on the test. So we've talked about that. The Gemara Shah and Bava Kama, Kufyu test. The woman of Mechayza were an issue. Okay, Dr. Gemara. Rav Safra all the Beis Akise. Rav Safra went to the bathroom. Asr Abba Nachale Abava. Rabbi Abba came afterwards and he coughed. It's fine if somebody was there. Amalei Leomar. So Rav Safra said, "Come in, come in." Busted the Nafek. After they came out, Rabbi Abba came out of the bathroom. You haven't yet gone to Seir. Nevertheless, you learned the inappropriate behavior. They're not appropriate ways that they would go to the bathroom in Rome. Meaning, because you talked. You said, come into the bathroom. And you're not supposed to talk. Obviously, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, you test. Gemara says women are going to the bathroom. They're allowed to talk. They're supposed to talk for serious reasons. But we're talking about men, they're not supposed to talk. So Rabbi Abba's angry. And why do you talk? Right? Do we not learn? Right? If you go in Israel, you go to a place like Beit Shan or things like that, you can see the old bathrooms that they have, the latrines. And the people sat all together in the bathroom. Totally un-Jewish and absolute every way. Yeah, so he's saying to him, you learned the meat of Seir, right? Because you said something in the bathroom, right? You see how sharp it was. Yeah. So he says, Lav Hakitan, did we not learn Madur Haisa Sham, that there was a fire there, rear by the Beis Hamikdash, where the Kahana will be able to warm themselves up. Basic kisa shakavid, and there was a basic kisa of honor. Is that a kavod? What was the cover of this basic kisa before you come into the basic English? Mitzvah, no, if it was locked, somebody in there. Mitzvah, pasuach, there's nobody in there. So you see, Amalav Arachari, not supposed to talk, and yet you talked. So what did Rav Safra think? Why did he talk? He didn't talk? He said you can come into the bed. Why did he talk? Now again, to me, there's another issue. What do you mean? He's coming to the same bathroom. How can he be in the same bathroom? What's the sneeze and that? So I have another issue. I'm not understanding that. But okay. But who's Savim Masukhin? What did Rav Safra think? Rav Safra thought that Rabbi Abba is in danger. Why? Because we already had the Gemara before in Chafei. The time of Shem Gamliel, I'm going to hachleiz. If somebody has to go to the bathroom and defecate, and he holds it back, maybe it's something with the hadrakline. Right? And Sila, if somebody has to go to urinate and he holds it in, Sila and maybe it's something with the Yirakan. All these are types of diseases. So Rabbi Safra said, Rabbi Safra felt this is too urgent. You have to come to the bathroom because you can't take this kind of risk. But let's just finish the two dash. Elazar Elazar went to the bathroom. Azahu Parsa, there was some sort of a Persian that came in after him. He pushed him away. Come, Elazar, V'nafik, Elazar left. Also, Derakina, some sort of a snake. Rashi says Shamte the Karkashe, and went and ate up the intestines, from this Persian who threw him out of the bathroom. Karla Elazar. Rabbi said about him the pasuk, I'm going to put another person underneath you. We're going to dash from this pasuk later. I'll take the Adam el Edaim. I'm going to put Edaim underneath you. In other words, that this is the punishment that this guy got. Tachtecha, the snake came in through the coven and ate him up because he pushed the blood out of the bathroom. All right, have a wonderful day.